good morning, or maybe good afternoon, or maybe good evening. Anyway, welcome back to my channel, and today is the first episode of a brand new series all about, well, the Icelandic lagoons, pools, spas, hot springs, geothermal experiences, the ones that are aimed at tourists. I've already filmed and scrapped this entire series once, and during the course of it I never came up with a suitable word that covers the entire collection of them. They're not all lagoons, they're not all spas. Pools doesn't differentiate them from local swimming pools, hot springs doesn't differentiate them from the ones that pop up in the middle of fields, and anyway, they're not all necessarily hot springs anyway. The one thing they do all have in common is they are all sort of shiny, high-end. They're aimed at tourists rather than locals, but people don't search YouTube for geothermal tourist things in Iceland, so we're going to go with probably hot springs or lagoons or spas. And we're going to start with the Blue Lagoon. Now the reason we're doing this is because, one, it's the big daddy, it's the one everyone knows, but really it's because it's the oldest. There are now 10 of them. I'm going to work up from the oldest to the newest, have a look at them all, see which one's the best, and just find out a little bit more about each of them. So the Blue Lagoon was opened to the public in 1987. It had been open to Icelanders for a little while because it's the runoff from the geothermal power station next door, and Icelanders see hot water and they want to swim in it. And when they swam in this wastewater, they found out that it was full of minerals and it seemed to be good for skin conditions, so they told the people in charge, and the people in charge went, excellent, we shall make this a tourist thing. I mean, I'm sure it was more complicated than that, but basically that's how it began. It began because it was good for your skin and because they could make money out of it. These days the Blue Lagoon still does have a massive skincare wing. It's got a clinic, it's got its skincare line. Some of it is actual skincare, some of it is more, you know, beauty and well-being and whatnot. And it also has its own hotel, which has got its own private lagoon. It's a big operation. It's got a spa in downtown Reykjavik, and I think it's got a spa at Keflavik Airport as well. So it's a big operation these days, and the Blue Lagoon itself is probably the biggest of all those parts. It's Boxing Day when this is out, but today it's the 10th of December, and the Blue Lagoon has been closed for over a month. Now there's been a lot of geothermal activity in southern Iceland over the last couple of months, and for a while it looked like there was a volcano that might well erupt directly below the Blue Lagoon. It's still within hitting distance if something does erupt. A couple of weeks ago we were looking at possibly there was not going to be an eruption after all. In short, there was a giant, what we call in English a magma corridor, and what we call in geological terms a dike, which opened up. It was at one point it was 400 to 500 meters below the surface, which is practically, you could scrape away and find it under there. That's very, very shallow. But the magma rose up and it filled it, and then it seemed to just consider its job done, solidified, finished. And we were starting to go, oh, well, it's all over. Maybe we can back all the people who've been evacuated from Grindavik can maybe be back by Christmas, maybe. But in the last week or so there has been more movement. There's been another dike has opened up, I gather, and another. It's a little bit of uplift. It was a lot of uplift a couple of months ago, but now it's uplifting again. So the uncertainty has begun all over again. So it might well be the Blue Lagoon is still closed by the time you're watching this. And if it is, then consider this series the which pool is going to replace the Blue Lagoon in the hearts and minds of tourists. And if it is open, then it's just plain which is the best of the 10 to go through. Little update from editing. There was a volcano. It started about 20 past 10 on Monday night, Monday the 18th of December. Blue Lagoon had been open for 48 hours. It reopened on the Sunday and immediately had to reclose because there was a volcano on the other side of the road. So it did happen. At the time of filming, which is December 26th, it's Boxing Day, the Blue Lagoon is still closed. They're going to discuss that again tomorrow, make a decision whether it's going to reopen now the volcano's stopped. But honestly, who knows what's going to happen. But yeah, it is currently closed. There was an eruption. All fun and games over there at the moment, isn't it? Now I have a vague idea of what I would choose as my favourite. If I was to order these 10 pools, I know which ones would be at the top and which ones would be at the bottom. But for the purposes of this series, I'm going to go through it a little bit more scientifically. I've got some criteria, I've got some points to award, and I'm just going to talk about the price before we get to that. That's the one I'm going to do at the end because that's the big one, that's the game changer. The prices vary hugely, and it didn't make sense to number them from 1 to 10. You'd think it would make sense to award the cheapest one 10 points and the most expensive one 1 point, but there's only about 35 points up for grabs at all, and so an extra 10 points really skews it in a really weird way. So, and it's going to sound weird, I'm going on a scale of something like -5 points up to 2 points, which it works out much better. You need to have the price taken into account, but you can't skew it that much, so this is my solution. So let's get into the points. So the first point I'm going to award, or not award, depends on the pool, is how easy it is to get there without hiring a car. Is it on public transport, in short? And I'm giving the Blue Lagoon half a point for this. It's not on public transport, it's not on the Reykjavik yellow city buses, but there are shuttle buses run by just about every tour company in the country, so yes, you can very easily get there without having to hire a car, so I'm giving it half a point. Every single one of these is on a tour, so if you want to visit them and you don't want to hire a car, there is always, every single one of the 10 is accessible by some kind of day tour, but they do restrict how long you can be in there. You're very much subject to their timetable, so you know, some of them it's as little as you get an hour between drop off and pick up, which is, I don't think is enough for any of them, but they are all accessible in a way. But half a point to the Blue Lagoon for being accessible by a bus of some kind, even if it's not the 500 krona city bus. Next up is private shower cubicles. Now the Icelandic system is that there are no chemicals put in the water. They keep the water clean, I mean, everything from the Blue Lagoon down to your local swimming pool, by making sure that you are clean when you go in. So there are posters up and you're required to wash with soap, without swimming costume, the certain areas marked on the poster. And some places this is just a communal shower room, particularly in local swimming pools. Tourists do not particularly Europe, British and North American tourists don't particularly enjoy getting naked in public, obviously. And so some pools and some lagoons and some spas and some of these 10 places will offer private showers. And the Blue Lagoon will definitely offer private showers. They are frosted glass. It's frosted glass about that thick. You can't see through. You can just about sort of make out shapes, but you are nice and private within there. Please go into the private shower cubicle, wash without swimming costume and all the places marked on the poster. And then the Blue Lagoon will be nice and clean when you go in. On a separate note, don't bother with the conditioner in the hair. Everyone tells you put conditioner in your hair because then the water doesn't strip it out. It does. All you end up with is like a conditioner on the bottom of the Blue Lagoon and your hair is slimy, and when you get out it will still be dry as straw. Go back to your hotel, go back to your campsite, wash it properly with as much conditioner as you can put in it. Don't bother putting it in before you go in the water. Total waste of time. So the first big batch of points, because we've gone small points but now we're in a big batch of points, is for the available facilities, and I'm going to go through them with the Blue Lagoon, and then probably after this I'm just going to mention the ones that are applicable. So my first one is it swimmable? And in this particular case, yes it is. The Blue Lagoon is a lagoon. I mean, you're not going to be swimming lengths, you're not going to be practicing for your Olympic title in there, but yet you can swim and get your feet off the floor and doggy paddle. It varies in depth. There are places where if you stand up and don't slip over on the steep slope, it'll only cover your feet, and there are places where it'll come up to your neck. So yeah, it's swimmable. Number 2, does it have a hot tub? In this particular case, no, doesn't really need one. The entire pool is a giant hot tub. It's, you know, it's anywhere between 38 and 42 degrees depending on how close you are to the water inlet and how recently fresh water has been poured in. So no points for a hot pot here. It does have a sauna, that's another of my points, and it does have a steam room. Now the steam room here is particularly interesting. The Blue Lagoon's aesthetic is this sort of vaguely space agey, vaguely clinical, blue, green, grey, glass, square. You know, it's very nice, very pretty, very recognisable, very branded. But the steam room, for some reason, is a little dark wooden hobbit hole complete with round wooden door. I don't know why it's like that. It's very characterful, I like it, but it just doesn't fit with the rest of the pool, and you just wonder who on earth designed that. When did they do the sauna, or did someone else do the sauna? But anyway, it gets a point for the sauna, it gets a point for the steam room. And does it have a waterfall? Yes it does, great big waterfall. You stand underneath, get your back massage and whatnot. So yep, point for having a waterfall. And then I give it a point for does it have any extras? And the Blue Lagoon does have extras. It has the face masks, the algae face masks. If you're on a basic package, you just get the white one included. If you upgrade to one of the more expensive packages and you have a special wristband, you can also get the green one. I don't know what the green one is, and the black one, which I assume is lava, but anyone can have the white one, so 1 point for extras. So I think that comes to 5 points altogether for the facilities. The next batch of points is for your in-water experience, and we're going to start with a swim up bar because people like to have a drink when they're in the hot water. The Blue Lagoon does indeed have an in-water bar, so you can swim up to it, you can wade up to it, you select your drink and you pay by holding out your electronic wristband, and they will scan it, and then when you leave you pay it off. The electronic wristband is a very important part of your Blue Lagoon experience. It's your entry ticket, it's your locker key, and you need it to exit afterwards when you've paid off anything you've bought on it, which is not just in-water drinks. They also have hats, they have phone cases, and there's a cafe just inside where you can buy snacks and food and things like that, and that's also paid for with your wristband. So yeah, 1 point for an in-water bar. I award points for towels for hire. Blue Lagoon does not have towels for hire, it has free towels, so it gets 2 points. It used to be that you get given them on entry, but now there's a kiosk where the pool goes outside, and you just take 1 or 2 and go back to the changing room, so nice and easy. You also get a point for, can you hire a robe? Yes, you can. I personally wouldn't bother. You're going to use it to get from the changing rooms to the edge of the water, and then you're going to hang it up along with approximately 10 million others, and you're never going to see it again. So I personally wouldn't bother, but if you would like to hire a robe, that is a thing that is possible. And then I'm going to award points out of 3 for the view. Now the Blue Lagoon has an interesting setting. It's in the middle of a lava field. It's been carved out of the lava. Do not believe under any circumstances for 1 minute that the Blue Lagoon is natural. I said earlier the Blue Lagoon is wastewater from the power station. It's been brought up from a borehole from hundreds of metres underground. It's beyond boiling down there because the pressure keeps it liquid at higher temperatures. So as it comes up, it turns to steam, turns to turbines, and then they condense the steam. The water cools, they pump it back underground. And before it gets pumped back underground, it goes into the Blue Lagoon for you to enjoy swimming in. It's perfectly clean. It's a funny colour. It's sort of milky, bluey, greeny white. Nice and hot. Yeah, it's lovely water, but it is wastewater from the geothermal power station. What was my point here? Oh, the view. Yes, so a big basin was dug out of the lava, and your view is, I mean, on the one hand you've got the power station, which maybe not the prettiest view, but in this case it's geothermal. It looks like something out of Jerry Anderson. It's all silver tubes and pipes and chimneys and steam, and it's not the ugliest power station for a spa to overlook. And then everywhere else you've got mountains, and these are mostly black. In the winter they'll be covered in snow, so a nice black and white view. In the summer they'll be covered in moss, so a nice black and green view. So it's not a bad view. I don't think it deserves a full 3 out of 3, but I'm going to give it 2 out of 3. And that comes to, for your in-water experience, I think 6 points altogether for the Blue. The next category is something that I keep calling vibes. I don't want to call vibes because I don't think it suits me to say it. But basically it's my own opinion. What do I think of it? Do I like it? Do I dislike it? I like the Blue Lagoon. I will keep choosing to go to the Blue Lagoon. It's not my favourite, but it's up there with my, you know, it's a reasonable favourite. It's about 2/3 of the way up. It's a good pool. I like it. It is expensive. We'll get onto that in a minute. But people talk about how touristy it is and how busy it is, and yes, it is touristy. Every tourist in the country goes there. If you're the kind who is a proper traveller and not a tourist, then you will avoid it like the plague. I like it. I'm going to give it 2 out of 3. It's not as busy as it sounds. It is every bit as busy as it sounds, but it's also quite big, and a lot of tourists don't stray from the very entrance and the bar. So there are back corners that you can find under bridges and things, and you can find a little private corner to just sit and soak up the hot water. So it's not as bad as it sounds. I think it certainly deserves 2 out of 3 for what do I think of it. And my last section, the one that can make or break a pool, I suspect, the price. Oh, this is the elephant in the room for the Blue Lagoon. How much does it cost? So pools, the prices can be difficult. A lot of them just have one set price. The Blue Lagoon has at least 3 price tiers, but the price also varies depending on time of day, so it'll have a different price first thing in the morning, middle of the day, last thing at night. So what I've tried to do is find the standard, no frills, normal, 90% of the time this is what it's going to cost you price, and that is, brace yourself, not that this is going to mean anything for a moment, 14,490 Icelandic krona, or in English, in pounds, that is about £87. £87. I said it was quite expensive. It's quite expensive. That's just for a basic entry. That's not including the upgrade where you can have the extra 2 masks. That's not including the one where you get the free robe. That's not including the one where you get the booking at the on-site restaurant. £87. It's a little cheaper. It's like 2,000 krona cheaper if you go, and I can't remember if it's first thing in the morning or last thing at night, but there's no time limit, I'll give it that. Once you're in until it closes if you want to be. So there are pools that will chuck you out after 2 hours, but I mean, for £87 you can stay in there the full day. Might not work out so bad, but yeah, it's very expensive. So this time we are losing 5 points. This is the big one. This is the most expensive one, I'll tell you that now. So yeah, on the scale of -5 up to 2, it gets a -5 for points. So where does that leave us all together? We have half a point for public transport, 1 point for private showers, 5 points for facilities, 6 points for experience, 2 points for me, and -5 points for price, which, if I've done my maths correctly, comes out to 9.5 points. Now in later videos I'm going to talk about how those scores compare as we go along. Obviously nothing to compare it to at the moment, so is that a good score? Is that a bad score? Where is this going to come out in the final 10? Don't know. So I'll just finish up with, I think I've had most of my thoughts and feelings on the Blue Lagoon as we go along. It's a nice pool, it's worth doing, it's right by the airport, it's only 20 minutes away from the airport by bus, so if you are arriving early in the day and would like to just relax before you get out onto your Icelandic adventure, or if you've got half a day and nothing to do in it before you go back to the airport, another good option. If you're afraid it's too touristy, like I said, it is, but it also kind of isn't, so don't let it put you off. Let the price put you off, by all means. It's very expensive, but if you're concerned that it's too touristy and it's not your sort of thing, you can find your own quiet corner and just feel like you've got the place to yourself all day, every day. You can also, it stays open up to midnight sometimes, so you can see the northern lights from it if you're lucky. You can see the closest thing Iceland has to the midnight sun. Iceland's not quite above the Arctic Circle, but it does stay pretty light most of the nights in the summer. Yeah, it's got food, it's got drink, it's got a relaxing room where you can just lie there. That's when you might want a robe if you're planning to use the relaxing room. But yeah, and then you get the bus back to Reykjavik, wash your hair, condition it properly, and yeah, that's your Blue Lagoon. Next week we are moving on to Mývatn Nature Baths, which is in the opposite corner of the country. It's up in the north east, and we'll see how that compares. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.